So that's a little bit from that. There are plenty of sections that are not that dark, I have to say. The entire book is not a relentless beating itself. But I don't want to take too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you two other weird things. I'm going to skip to the afterword of the book to explain something. And then I'm going to read you something that isn't in the book, which is an entry from my blog. And I'm not going to read you the whole afterword, but this is an easy way to talk about what I'm doing here. So this is actually the very end of the book. My first goal in any book is to tell a good story. In the course of doing so, themes naturally arise. Sometimes those themes are clear only in hindsight when the work is complete. Other times, as in Children No More, they appear the moment the idea for the book pops into my brain. The use of children as soldiers is one of those topics that few people like to discuss. Depending on what you read and watch, you can go a very long time without bumping into it. Do a web search on the subject, however, and you'll find that children are fighting and dying every day. Hard numbers are, as you might expect, difficult to come by. But groups such as the International Rescue Committee estimate about 300,000 boys and girls are involved today in this horrific practice. I find this deeply disturbing. I think everyone should. I understand that in the catalog of the world's woes, a cause with only a few 100,000 sufferers may seem like a small thing. Numerically, it certainly falls way below hunger, disease, poverty, and many other vital issues humanity must address. But these are children. Children whom adults are turning into soldiers, and that is simply wrong. I must confess to a special connection to this cause because of personal experience, not, I hasten to note, as a child soldier. I have never experienced anything as bad as what these boys and girls undergo. I did, however, spend 3 years in a youth group that trained young boys to be soldiers. The group's intentions were good, to use military conventions and structures to teach discipline, fitness, teamwork, and many other valuable lessons. It certainly accomplished many of those goals with me. The year I joined, however, was 1965, and war was ramping up in Vietnam. I was 10 years old. Yeah, really old. On my first day, an active soldier on leave showed up and acted as our drill sergeant. That afternoon I saw my first, but not my last, necklace of human years, and learned the ethics of collecting them. That day, I stood at attention in the hot Florida sun while this grown man screamed at me and, when I cried, punched me in the stomach so hard that I fell to the ground and threw up. He put his boot on my head and ground the side of my face into my vomit. That was not the worst day I had in those 3 years. It wasn't even close. My worst days with that group were nothing compared to what the child soldiers endure. Nothing. So there's a little more. I'm going to skip a little bit of it, but I want to read the end of this and then one more little thing. I grew up believing in a number of virtues that my mother taught me were essential American beliefs. One of the most important and powerful of them was something that seemed, and still seems, so obvious to me that I've always held it close. Each generation owes the next one a better world. We owe our children a better life than the one we enjoyed. When any group makes its children into soldiers, it is abandoning that responsibility. That group is wrong. This practice must stop, and we owe it to the former child soldiers to help reintegrate them into their societies. I hope we pay that debt. So, I used to, a long time ago, think that you could write something and maybe you wouldn't put yourself out there. You know, some people didn't. And I've come to realize that every writer, like comedian, is working naked from the waist down, and whatever you are is going to come through in your work. And so with that, and partly because I get a lot of mail from people, a lot of my books deal with topics of abused soldiers, and I get abused children, rather, and I get mail from people who were sexually abused, who were physically abused, who were in the military too young. And universally, these people are afraid to talk about it. The people that they live with don't want to hear about it. The people that they care for don't want to hear about it. Andrew Vox, a crime writer and an attorney who specializes in defending children, calls abused children the children of the secret. And it's because nobody wants to hear. So I decided, fuck that. And so I've started doing a series of blog entries called Lessons from a Militarized Childhood. I was in this youth group. I was also, for 4 years, an abused child. And so I'm going to read you one of those lessons. I think I'm going to read you the worst lesson, I guess. It's the least violent lesson. So this is the lesson. You deserve it. They wouldn't hurt you if you were better. If you had held up your legs longer during the leg lifts, they wouldn't have needed to stomp on your stomach. If you weren't such a baby, you would have kept your legs up when they did. If you were a better fighter, you wouldn't lose so often. even though half the time your opponents are men twice your size, men who laugh as you hit them and then slam you so hard you cannot breathe. They make it clear. They say it over and over. They're doing it for your own good. Without them to teach you the lessons you need to learn, you'd grow up even stupider, uglier, and fatter than you are. You'd let down your squad. You'd die early. You'd let others die. You won't do that. You won't let down anyone. So you try to be better. You know with a bedrock certainty, more than you know anything else, that if you were only better, they would stop hurting you. You wouldn't have to fight. You'd get to be like the other kids you remember, or have seen on TV, or see as you march by, carrying your gun, your eyes scanning everywhere while their dads hold them high and point out the little soldiers. Aren't they like little men? Aren't they cute?